The place we choose to live is as important, if not more important than those other two. Because the kind of job you want and you need, and the kind of person you want to take as a spouse or significant other, that increasingly depends on where you are and how you use the place you live in. Well, there's a lot of stuff I can talk about in that. Tons of it. I can talk about the kinds of places that work. I can tell you about my Bohemian Index, the gay and lesbian index, and all of these other factors that we probe. I'm just going to write down to the most fundamental. In the new book, we did a survey. We worked with a pretty good outfit, the Gallup organization. We surveyed more than 30,000 people. We asked them about what makes them happy, what gives them fulfillment, not what makes them economically rich, and not what leads to greater rates of job growth. What makes you happy in your life? And we asked them specifically about their job and about their lifestyles, about their family and friends, and about their community. Well, I gave you one punchline already. The place we live is as important as our jobs and our social relationships in our fulfillment. They are the third leg of that triangle. They account for as much or more happiness than a great career, a great job, and great finances. And in some cities, as much or more than our personal relationships. Because so many people living in cities today are isolated. And the other thing we found out is how and what communities really make us fulfilled and happy. And we explain this in the book. I explain this in the book in a simple pyramid. Kind of like Maslow, the great psychologist, talked about in his hierarchy of needs. Now, there are some people who'll tell you there's trade-offs to be made. You want to live in a city with a good job market, great schools, low crime. Anything else is frivolous. They say, Florida, he doesn't get it. He talks about the frivolities of a great arts and cultural community, great parks, great recreation, outdoor sports. I'm not just talking about the creative class. I'm talking about everybody. All classes, all wage levels, all income levels, all races, sexual orientations. What they told us in this survey is you have to do the whole thing. At the base of the pyramid, you got to have good opportunity. You got to have a good job market. You got to have people being able to do what they love and what they want. The second level, you got to have good basics. You got to have good schools. You got to have good health care. You got to have a wonderful society to live in. You need to have good leadership, business leadership. At the middle, you need to have good political and civic leadership. But there are two top layers of the pyramid you can't forget. We ask people about openness. We ask people, is your city, is your community a good place for families with children, gay and lesbian people, young singles trying to meet people and get a job? Is it a good place for the poor? Is it a good place for artists, culturally interesting people? Is it a good place for entrepreneurs who want to launch a business? Elderly people, disabled people, on and on, racial, ethnic, religious minorities. The communities that people said they were the happiest and the most fulfilled were communities that were open to everyone. The communities that had an open-minded, diverse, inclusive culture, where the residents told us this, had much higher levels of fulfillment and happiness. And at the top of the pyramid, quality of place itself. The quality of the place itself. Its natural assets, its physical assets. Its parks, its streams, its rivers, its lakes, its shorefronts, its green space, its natural assets, and its physical assets. The use and protection and preservation of a historic spirit, authenticity, making sure that history was preserved, making sure that the place was authentic and real and not generic. It's funny. People resist this all the time. They say the real key is the schools are good and the crime is low. Whether we like it or not, for all of our existence, human beings have been attracted to beauty. That's not frivolous. When we were in the cave, we started to draw on the cave. When we were in loincloths, we started to put body paints on. Think about it. All of our existence, even when we were so darn poor, we were drawn to beauty. Think about what you have achieved in this country, in architecture and design. These are not frivolities. And what people told us, including the poorest people, was that being in a community that's physically beautiful, that has wonderful trees and green spaces, not like in the United States where they chop them all down and it's all asphalt in a ghetto with a big tower. where the community has historically preserved itself, where there's wonderful parks where you can ride your bike or push a stroller or walk your dog. Those are the things that matter. Well, anyway, I told you I come from the Fidel Castro School of Public Speaking. So I just want to end on a story. And a story I think that might be useful to you in thinking about your own efforts here to build a creative economy, a creative community, and a creative society. It happened to me about 10 years ago when I visited Seattle, Washington, in our Pacific Northwest in North America for the first time. At the time, Seattle was not the high-tech, quote-unquote, and it scores highly on my indicators, creative mecca it has become. We went for a walk in the downtown core. Microsoft was located in a suburb. This was before even the music revolution with grunge and Nirvana had taken place. It was beginning to percolate. The downtown of Seattle was desolate. There were homeless people on the streets. The storefronts were shuttered. There were some big office towers off on the side. But in this huge part of downtown and along the wonderful coastline there, it was quite dilapidated. And they asked me, they pointed actually to one of the original Starbucks. Can you believe it was that long ago? There were only several of them at the point. One of the Starbucks, they said, well, now we have a coffee shop down, and it's a homegrown. It was a local, and there's a coffee shop, and the wonderful bookstore is still there, independent bookstore. We have a bookstore. And off in the distance, I could see a new building being built. And it was a very interesting shape, not unlike anything I had come across. And they said, oh, that's a new building that's being built, and the architect doing it, we all know him now, but he was not that well known, is Frank Gehry. And they said it's going to be this new swoopy, curvilinear building, and it's going to be built with stainless steel and metal. I said, oh my God, why? And they said to me, that's what Paul is doing for our town. I'm thinking, who the heck is Paul? And they said, oh, Paul Allen. He is the fellow who co-founded Microsoft with Bill Gates. And of course, everybody knows Bill Gates. I knew Bill Gates. He's the guy who's the software mind. Bill Gates was business mind. He's the guy who really was the coder. He was a friend of Bill's. They grew up. They went to school together. And as it turned out, they both moved back to Seattle to form this company. And now that Paul is like a super billionaire, he wanted to do something for the town he built his business in. Well, I'm thinking to myself, what the heck is Paul Allen building? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind, right, and this is my wheels turning, first thing is Paul Allen is a software genius. So what he's building here in Seattle has got to be like the Albert Einstein Science Museum. He's a physicist, mathematician, computer scientist. This is what has motivated him. It's a science center for the future of Seattle. Nope. Okay, I got to have another guess. He's a software developer inventor. So if he's a software developer and an inventor, it's a center for the invention, like Thomas Edison. A center for young people and people who want to come to be inventors to go and learn to be like Paul Allen. Nope, it's not a center for invention and discovery. Well, as they say in America, 3 strikes and you're out. So my third guess. Well, it's not the scientist, it's not the inventor. Well, he's richer, right, than God. It's got to be like the Center for Entrepreneurial Robber Baron Capitalism, How to Get Rich Quick. Strikeout. They said, no, it's not any of those 3. It's the Jimi Hendrix Experience Music Project.